William Johnson here, and this is another percussion tutorial. So in this episode, really I'm starting a new series, but in this episode I'm going to be talking about different ideas and ways to approach a drum break. Or in other words, there's a drum set player and there's you, maybe even another percussionist, but the band drops out and the drums step forward, and there is on the song that you were given, perhaps you're covering, there was no roadmap for you to don't know what to play. It was just drums on the recording. So I had a lady message me asking me if I would go over a video around this context, within this context. And I thought it would be a great idea. Now, the way that she framed it was, or called it a war cry. And I think most of us will understand, especially in the sense of a house of worship or church, or this type of music that I'm going over here in a more contemporary Christian, like rock type setting, pop setting. What would it mean by war cry? But traditionally, basically, it's a drum break, right? It's a very intense moment. The band drops out, and maybe there's an anthem being sung, a chorus being sung over and over, and the drummer's just going, however the rhythm is, and that's it. Or maybe there's no vocals at all, and it's just the drums, and they're just going for it. So what do you do when you're the bongo player, when you're the conga player, when you're on other floor toms, auxiliary percussion, and you're playing along, and it's not in the recording, but you want to add something, or maybe you shouldn't play anything? Well, that's what this episode is all about. It's a difficult episode or series, I think, for me personally to talk about, because it has a lot to do with improvisation and expression, personal sensibilities, and your particular context, which I don't know what that is. So I'm going to give you a couple things that how I approach it. But before I jump into all of that, if you have not yet subscribed, I would love for you to be a part of this YouTube channel. Hit that button down there, subscribe button, and the little bell notification thingy, and that way you'll be notified of any future videos coming up. If you're watching this in the time context that I actually uploaded the video, then you may or may not know that a few days ago I uploaded a music video called The Road. It's a new song, new single on iTunes, Amazon, all those other streaming places digitally. Then you can check out. But check out the music video. Check that out. I got a really cool, I think it's pretty cool anyways, cool giveaway coming up concerning that. So if you've already commented, watched the video and commented on the video, you'll automatically be entered into that particular giveaway drawing. So anyways, let's jump into this lesson. Now, in the beginning of this video, you notice I was playing along to this drum track, this groove. Now, I created this drum groove to explain this particular lesson in series. And what's happening is I'm just going to give a couple ideas, a couple categories, ways to approach this. This particular video is just like a seminar. It's a general, overall general way of looking at this. And then in the subsequent videos, I'll get more specific. I'll talk more specifically about particular situations. So this video is just overall. So I'm going to introduce some ideas, and then we'll talk about that. So the first idea is, well, even before I get into that, talking about what we do in these situations really has to do with your context. What is your music director? What is the information that you have? What type of room are you in? Because we play to the room. What type of culture within the congregation? What type of instruments are you using? I'm going to use congas, but I'm also in other videos going to use cowbells, wood blocks, shakers, rain sticks, all these other things that I'm going to use. But for this particular video, I use congas and a shaker. And I think some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about and go over still applies, even if you're just playing bongos or a djembe or frame drum, darbuka, etc., etc. So your context, that's another thing. Your personality, because at the end of the day, what are you going to risk? If you have been giving a certain liberality, a certain freedom to express within this situation, well, then now it comes down to how much are you willing to put yourself out there. And really, when it comes to music, whether it's worship music, whether it's spontaneous, whether it's the Holy Spirit, whether it's not, and whether it's completely secular or whatever that means, it still comes down to you. It comes down to your personality and how vulnerable you are, what you put out there and what you share. And some of these things, if you're not sure what to do and you're stuck, especially this is really driven, this whole lesson is series is really driven towards the beginner. But if you're stuck, you really, it's going to be difficult for some, but I challenge you to really work on that particular part of your personality. Because you might say, William, I'm more of a laid back person. I don't do this or that. But if you're trying to add more in this particular context, then this is where parts of your personality start to come into play. So there's things to notice and recognize outside of specific articulation on the instrument. Okay, so sometimes when we do videos like this, people will say, oh, well, you talk too much. But there's a balance. Some of these things cannot be explained just by playing. Some of these things have to be they need analogies and they need metaphors. They need explanations because they are abstract ideas. When it comes to improvisation, they are abstract ideas to a certain extent, okay? So, anyways, I added a few different ways that I could approach it in the playing of this video, okay? And that's what you're going to see now. Now, those were a couple different ways that I could approach it. But here, what it comes down to is what I want to talk about is 3 or 4 different ideas and categories within what to play when the band drops out and it's the drummer, okay? Now, remember, it depends on what you're going for. How did the song sound in the beginning? It might be that you don't change anything, and if you were doing a groove, you just stick with that groove. And your groove and the drummer's groove comes to the forefront when the band drops out. It might be that you do nothing. You actually stop and just let the drummer hold it, and you egg everybody on, encourage them, and you dance around and get into it. I don't know. It depends on your situation. But other than that, if I were to be very vague about it and just talk about a couple different ideas, it can come down to a few different ideas. One is a groove-based or loop-based idea where it's focused on one instrument. So the congas, it might be that you just stick to a groove. I had the drum idea that the drummer was playing in my mind. So you notice that I have a theme. I have a theme. That's my theme. And I'm basically kind of looping myself over. I can add some small variations. See, I added a little small variation there. But overall, it's a groove bass. It's like a backtrack. The other idea is that I can become like a soloist or a lead drummer. Kind of like an electric guitar versus the rhythmic guitar. A rhythm guitar is playing his chords, while the electric guitar might be doing some atmospheric stuff and just improvisation. While the rhythm guitar is going bum bum dun 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 dun. And so you may become that if the drummer is playing something that is consistent, like a pocket groove. He's going boom boom cha boom cha. So you might play. So this becomes a little more difficult because now it's a matter of what language you have. So if you're truly a beginning, you want to develop your drum language because now you're improvising and you're comping. In the jazz world, we have what's called a term called comping. That's in any other world, really. You're comping. Somebody says something and then you say something. It's a conversation, okay? So in order to do that, you want to develop your drum language. Now, I did a couple videos that I think are pertinent to this idea. It will help you if you're relevant to go back and check those out. I'll put a link in the description. One is things that all conga players should do to develop their skill. Another one, I can't remember what the other one is, but go back. You want to go back and check that out because this has to do with timing. It has to do with the ability to count. But what it also has to do with knowing what the drummer is actually doing. And that comes down to your listening skills and your ability to hear phrases within time. So one is if he's going boom, boom, da, boom, da, da. If you can hear that and you can hear patterns well, then you know you can hear the pattern and you can do like my finger here and here's my other hand and go right within. So it's like a cog wheel. It's like a wheel that's turning, but we're not getting in the way of each other. We're complementing one another. Okay, so that's a skill that needs to be developed. Another thing, the third idea here is more of a split type thing. So instead of just focus on one, I may be doing a shaker or cowbells or wood blocks, floor toms, cymbals, whatever in one hand, while the other hand plays the other instrument. So there's a couple different ways I can do this. I can either play a straight pattern with that hand, okay, and then improvise with the other hand, or just do a loop-based groove like in the beginning, while this does, so they're both steady, different patterns. A little bit of variation there, or I can solo on this hand. That takes a little bit more development, skill. Right? So what's happening is I'm basing all of this based on the context that we're in. And that's what it comes down to. So I'm just giving a bunch of different ideas to glean from and introducing this as an overall series. I'm going to go more specific, talking about counting, talking about you choosing different sounds, timbres, more metallic and higher pitched tones. How will that make you feel? Playing to the room, articulation, borrowing from other genres like salsa, rumba, Latin styles of playing where I'm using a lot of muffs and slaps, using my fist more. So this is just the intro. If you have any ideas in this lesson, go ahead, shoot a comment down there and let me know. But again, it's a little jumbled, a little bit of everywhere here, but I wanted to introduce those 3 ideas that I went over, okay? And also me playing to a drum track and just a couple different ways to play that is related to those 3 ideas. And then talk about, and I just wanted to mention about the personality, what you might play, what maybe you shouldn't play, what is the situation, the context for you. Anyways, thank you for watching, but don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification. That way you'll be notified of any future videos. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.